Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4 in the morning here in the UK, and Sony have just finished their confusing PlayStation E3 2018 conference. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I am joined as ever by my loyal co-host, Lewis Crawford.
Hello there. I mean, you say as ever. I think this is the first time we're kind of together.
Well, yeah. Yeah, okay. My loyal-ish, except for E3 2018 co-host. How are you?
Yeah.
How's Copenhagen?
Yeah, it's nice. It gets sunny here really early, so there's literally no chance of me sleeping. Yeah. And the sun comes out super early over here.
I mean, we knew that E3 was going to fuck with our sleeping schedules, just not in different countries. All right. You know
Look,
how we
this is
do. You know how we do conferences. We go through them chronologically. We will talk about um, the first reveal all the way to the last reveal in order, giving the most time to the big reveals and the littlest time to the small reveals. So Sony started off in a very, very different kind of setup indeed. It was a much, much smaller room. In fact, it was a church. What did you think of this room when you first saw it, Lewis?
um, so I was worried at first, I guess, thinking it was like they'd gone for something very different with this E3 show, and they did in a way, but they'd gone really different with their E3 show, and I was a bit worried about it. But yeah,
Um,
I think I enjoyed
So
that.
yeah, it was a church that we saw them in, and the journalists were stood up within this church. Ironic, I thought it was quite funny. I was reading on Twitter, lots of people. There were no seats. There was no kind of sloping to it. So if you were at the back and couldn't see anything, you couldn't see anything. But then
Yeah.
we started a demo of The Last of Us 2, and the church that the journalists were situated in was an exact replica of the church that featured in the demo, where Ellie was seen at a kind of church dance, I suppose you would call it. The church, as I say, is the exact same one as is in the demo, and the gameplay
Yeah.
goes from there. We see Ellie being talked to and flirted with in the dance, and the flirting leads to, I think, a flashback, although it's not made incredibly clear, of her basically going on a murder spree. Um,
Yeah. So yeah, like Ellie's turned into a monster. Um, this was some incredibly brutal footage uh of just her kind of like cutting people up with a machete.
yeah,
Um, like no two ways about it. Um, this looked amazing. Uh, in terms of like the quality of this show, I think there's maybe only one that's possibly like kind of fighting with this one.
mm,
Uh, this looked beautiful, and I said to you straight away, like maybe this is PS5. Like this looks ridiculously good. Um, but then again, this is Naughty Dog, and they tend to be quite good at doing that.
yeah. I don't think, as I said to you off air, I don't think it's PS5. I think it's probably PS4 end of the generation. Um, I think it looks good. I don't think it looks much better than God of War good, for example. And so I could see it being far away, but not too far away. Not as far
Right.
away as some of the other games that we'll talk about in a bit. As you say, the gameplay was incredibly brutal. I found it a little too brutal at times. I know.
Oh.
Oh, fuck off. I know it's Last of Us's thing to be like, oh, look, how brutal is this world? But to me, I don't know, it felt. There was one moment in particular where a person is murdered by one of the antagonists in the scene, and rather than just being murdered in the scene, they like fucking pull out their entrails. And to me, I think it's I don't know. I think it's odd that Last of Us is kind of heralded as this mature storytelling device, but at the same time is trying so hard to be the edgiest kid in the room. Um, well, it is
Yeah.
like I'm not insulting its method of storytelling. Clearly, it has a very good way of telling stories, and clearly, it touches on a very adult tone that games very rarely do. But I think part of telling a story with an adult tone is knowing what to show and what not to show, and gaming hasn't got the hang of not showing everything yet.
Okay.
And then, as you say, the gameplay didn't really get much nicer from that point. Ellie is a straight up fucking murder machine in this. She is cutting people up left, right, and centre. I did like, however, that she wasn't a polished murder machine. She made mistakes quite often, and a lot of the demo was you kind of fixing the mistakes that you made. I imagine if you play this perfectly, it'll go very well for you. But this seemed like very realistic gameplay, I will say. It was a vertical slice, quite clearly, but it was a vertical slice that felt like it could very easily become the game that we play.
Yeah, and they showed off a lot of different kind of tech in the game, and like how you can pick up objects and throw them without kind of any real transitions.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and then there was like the crafting system, being able to craft things just on the go casually, which was quite a popular, not popular, quite a nice feature of Last of Us One, and it looks like that's going to come back. Ellie has a bow, and we're going to be able to shoot like not rocket, like exploding arrows and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks really interesting. And to be honest, Naughty Dog, with the whole like correcting the mistakes thing, and like Naughty Dog are very good at like making that kind of tech seamless with gameplay, and like having like characters react to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very good at making kind of natural interactions and world interactions. A couple of things we didn't see from this trailer. The first thing is a release date. I've been saying for a while, I think this game is probably quite a way away. We certainly know it's not this year. We certainly know it's not early 2019. And I think I'd put money on it probably being not late 2019 either at this point.
Yeah, really? Okay. So I see it maybe late 2019.
I could see it being maybe late 2019, but something says to me if it was, they could have just put 2019 on the trailer, and that's been quite a popular thing for E3 this year. Is going, it's basically E3 2018 has been a great E3 for next year.
Yeah, no, it has.
I think they probably could have got a seriously major win this conference by having the last trailer be The Last of Us 2. Here's what you saw from Ellie 2019. That would have been a big win for them, and they're quite good at not promising something they can't deliver, which makes me think they're not ready to promise yet.
Yeah, okay.
The next thing was we got a 10-minute intermission for some
this
fucking
was
reason.
Bad. There's no other way of putting it. Like, I think I would have been much happier with this conference had we just kind of not had this bit. Like, if they just kind of, I mean, not that I actually was quite happy with the conference in general, but I think like if you didn't have this bit, then like it would be twice as good as a conference. Just like waiting kind of 10-15 minutes while nothing happens.
So to contextualize it, the journalists in the room in the church were then moved from that room to another. They weren't just, however, moved from that room to the main conference hall. They were moved through a Ghosts of Tsushima event. Basically, they were moved through a forest and moved through the setting of what will become the next demo, which was Ghosts of Tsushima. And then we were sat down basically in a kind of makeshift auditorium where the rest of the conference took place. Now, part of me says I wish they hadn't done this, but also something that I'll get to at the end of this is I really didn't like this conference, and the reason I didn't like it is because I feel like we didn't go deep enough.
Right.
And I'd have loved them to have this conference be in 4 slots, and each of those slots is a room. You know, Tsushima is the dojo, or the dojo may not be the right word. I'm sorry if it isn't. The setting for the final battle of the Tsushima demo. Death Stranding is, I don't know, the womb or whatever the fuck it is that Kojima is actually making. And then Spider-Man could have been like a New York rooftop setting, but instead we saw the rest of the conference from an auditorium at this point.
Yeah, I feel like 3 of the 4 were deep dives. I mean, not deep, but we got enough.
I would say 2 of the 4 were.
Okay.
No, yeah, maybe three's fair. So the next gameplay that we got was Ghosts of Tsushima, and the first thing that absolutely hits you when you play it, when you not play it, when you see it, is the art style.
Mm.
Holy hell, this game looks beautiful. And I think the thing that's quite nice about it is it doesn't necessarily look beautiful in a, oh, this has graphical fidelity way. This has an incredible art style. It reminds me of, this is a deep fucking cut, and if you go and check it out, respect to you. There's an artist called Daniel Conway who makes very, very heavily Japanese inspired art for albums for a metal band called Fightstar. And all the art that we saw in this reminds me of his art and his kind of style. So if you want to know what it looked like without watching the conference, Google Daniel Conway Behind the Devil's Back and Daniel Conway Grand Unification. If this game had come out a year ago or was coming out this year, this would be my I'd buy a PS4 for it.
Okay.
Just I've never watched the first few seconds of a demo and been so impressed by an art style. It's beautiful. It looks like a painting at times.
Yeah.
Just hugely impressive.
Yeah.
I thought the gameplay was good, was very solid. I don't think it was quite as striking as the visuals.
Okay. No, I thought the gameplay was so we saw different bits of the gameplay. One was kind of combat. I thought the combat was very at least the kind of like your general grunt combat is very focused on being kind of accurate and quick, as opposed to like a traditionally kind of sword fighting games. It's hit your enemy 10 times until like the combat animation plays, or till you've kind of whittled their health all the way down to zero. Whereas this kind of felt, to be honest, I imagine it's going to be similar to kind of like Assassin's Creed, where you press the button at the right time to parry. But like the impression here was that the combat was very much, hit once and hit right, dead.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like how the character fought through this group. And then we saw a bit of kind of sneaking stealth gameplay, which looked really good, I think. Just kind of like being able to sneak around, being able to kind of do stealth kills that looked quite cool. We have like a grappling hook and can run around the environment and like use beams and all this to kind of like really kind of like interact with the environment. And you mentioned a bit like in Batman.
Yeah,
the way that's kind of set up.
I was going to say, I didn't say this to you during the conference because it sounded a bit silly when I thought of it in my head, but we're watching the gameplay demo as we're doing this right now. Certainly I am. And watching the stealth sections, there's a moment where the protagonist of the game looks from a bar above down to the characters below who he's going to attack and kill, and he can highlight each of them and move seamlessly from one to the next. It reminded me very heavily of the fear system from Arkham Knight, where you would jump from each takedown to takedown. Then he pulls
totally.
Then he pulls somebody through a wall, much like you would do if you were doing a wall takedown from Arkham. And it hit me during this. I was expecting Rocksteady's logo to come up. I kind of, I know it sounds silly, but if you told me that they were borrowing some of their systems, I would have totally believed you. You could tell me that they're copying that gameplay seamlessly, and it would absolutely, convince me. And that's a good thing.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk about on this one is the, what you and me can both see now. So they have like a very cinematic kind of this like one-on-one fight between your character and this other character.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the look of this kind of very personal close fight, but then like very cinematic styled, very how to put it, like no HUD elements. It's just kind of like I don't know. Maybe you describe like what you feel about this.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. It's very what's the word, directed.
Yeah,
I've got to imagine it almost looks like if Quentin Tarantino could make good films and then made good video games with them. Sorry. It's not just a case of you put your character in place and a cutscene begins. It's you put your character in place and then a bit of a cutscene begins and the settings around you change and the leaves on the floor move and then you start the gameplay and that triggers. Like, it seems incredibly dynamic in what gameplay is and what gameplay isn't, what's moving and what's still. One of the things I really, really quite like about this, but I do wonder how it will work in actuality and how it will flow as a game, is how directed it seems, and is how clearly there's an influence of samurai films, of karate films, of traditional sort of Japanese filmmaking in this to some extent, and Sucker Punch are clearly taking influence from that. I
yeah, no,
hope
definitely. The scene that we're on about is definitely kind of that feeling of um, like a very directed Japanese style film.
I hope it flows well when it comes to actually playing it. That's my one hang up about this, is taking control from the player to show that stuff can work really well if you do it right, but can also be really stilting if you do it wrong.
Yeah, I think like obviously I don't know what they share in terms of companies, but like um, they're in a like so Sony as like a collective have been very good at the whole taking control up from the player, and and like Naughty Dog are very good at it. God of War's done a very good job of that kind of removing control but keeping the game kind of play kind of moving. But then I don't know if that like helps them all. um, like I think this generation we can do it, which very quickly. I was just thinking back to the Assassin's Creed Odyssey
Demo.
trailer that we saw, and one of the things that we saw in that is a genuine cut to black to play a cutscene, and not to play a cutscene, but to enter the like conversation part of the cutscene, and like that pains me. It pains me because you play. You play God of War. God of War's like the most obvious example because it's kind of sold itself on this to some extent. And like, you don't need this like cut to black or cut to cutscene. You can just have your character like walk into the cutscene, not to necessarily have it as one shot. But you don't have to kind of have this like because this is what makes it go. You're talking about like entering the cutscene. This is what makes like entering the cutscene a problem, is when you have cut to black. Okay, put the controller down. All right, I'll just
I don't know that I agree there. I've had a number of cases where I've gone from not every game does it, but there are a number of games that start off with a tutorial and then look, I'm in control of this. To me, this is really interesting. Just as a quick aside, they're showing a demo at the minute of Dreams and how it works in moving bits of the world around and turning them into something. I've seen this demo a year and a half ago. And it looked cool then as well. I've had a number of games where the tutorial sort of becomes the game, and then vice versa. And personally, I always find it a bit jarring. I'll always say that my example of a bad way of doing this is Tomb Raider, where you're running across a bridge, and then oh no, the bridge is getting destroyed. But rather than continue to run across the bridge, the camera pans away, and you have no control. And that, I think, is a bad example of it. This could be a good example because it's so directed. But in the same way, they've got to direct it carefully. So then...
But I think go on.
No, I'm just going to progress on, so after you.
Yeah, I mean, I think high direction is something that Sony's been interested in, so maybe. Hopefully.
Then we got a very, very odd cutaway from Dreams.
The cutaways. So Dreams had little cutaways throughout the conference, and each one kind of felt like a little bit of a troll. So there was one. The best one was what's it, flute guy or trumpet guy, and he appears on screen, gets his trumpet out, and just toot. Next bit of presentation. I think they were just kind of like trolling everyone. Yeah.
So then we had a cut away from Dreams, which led to probably one of the biggest surprises of the conference, which was the trailer for the Resident Evil 2 remake. Now, we basically knew that this game was coming. It had been talked about in investors' calls and so on, but I think the biggest surprise of it is how good it looks.
Yes, no, totally, and I'm super down for this. This is like something. Yeah, we knew it was coming. RE2 Maker was very much known about, but like I still didn't expect it. You know, you would kind of like think, oh no, it's just a rumor.
Yeah.
Even if things are like really confirmed, you're like, oh, until I see a trailer, it doesn't exist. And yeah, this is like probably one of the higher points of E3 for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Resident. I hate Resident Evil. I just love Resident Evil 2. It's like a bit of a weird curse. Actually, 7's good as well. But yeah, like I think partly it's because I just remember being the kid with the PS1 and sitting down and playing Resident Evil 2 when I was far too young to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super down for it.
So then we got another Dreams cutaway, and it led to a trailer for the totally not Rick and Morty, the game, called Trover Saves the Universe. And if you've seen Rick and Morty or seen the little VR game that Dan Harmon and Squawk Games made, I think a year ago or a year and a half ago, this is very much in the same vein. It's very, very kind of, oh look, things are happening over there, and there's words, and some things are funny because we keep drawing attention to them, and it's that the game. It's very.
You're not a fan of Rick and Morty?
Oh no, I love Rick and Morty. I just would like to see Dan Harmon make something that
Right.
doesn't look like
Okay.
Rick and Morty.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, like, you could have put the characters Rick and Morty in this and told me it's a Rick and Morty game, and I would have said, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. It doesn't seem to
Yeah.
make a lot of sense as not Rick and Morty. It's like Seth MacFarlane making a game that looks exactly like Family Guy and then being like, oh, but it's called American Boy. Like, it doesn't help in any way.
That's never happened.
Then
You skipped over something, I think.
Kingdom Hearts 3?
Remedy?
Sorry.
Remedy's Control.
Oh, yeah, shit, so I did. Well, that's terrible, isn't it? Tell me about that.
So we got a very interesting looking trailer, like bizarre trailer, because its kind of style was this very abstract world of like blocks moving around and kind of talking about going deeper into this cycle or this world. Hard to really pin down exactly what it is from that, but then we got some gameplay footage, and quite obvious from the gameplay footage who the dev was.
Yeah.
Because it's very much kind of Quantum Break. It's very clearly Quantum Break tech.
Yes.
And so yeah, Remedy announcing Control, an interestingly looking styled game, something that like the style looks quite unique, something I haven't really seen in a game before in that kind of way. And hopefully, like, well, I mean, we can talk about it, but I mean, hopefully, Quantum Break wasn't known for its good, like, action tech. So hopefully they've kind of improved that a lot in this game. We'll see.
I think this looked to me quite like a sort of fairly natural evolution of Quantum Dream tech. I'm almost sad in a way that I wonder if in a different universe this is Quantum Break 2, and something healthier came out of that.
I kept thinking it was. I thought it was going to be Quantum Break 2, to be honest with you, up until it said Control.
I think Microsoft owned the IP.
Okay.
So I maybe wonder if it started off as Quantum Break 2.
I think there's a very real chance. Yeah. But yeah, so Remedy announcing a game at Sony Conf.
Yeah, something that hasn't happened in a long time. It's worth saying that the game is multi-platform and was not presented with any kind of exclusivity. So that's a good thing for everyone involved. But yeah, Remedy definitely taking a step away from Microsoft on this one. Next up, we got some details from Kingdom Hearts 3. Pirates of the Caribbean is getting a world and the gameplay looked fantastic. So Kingdom Hearts 3 is getting basically every kind of world in the Disney canon, and Square Enix is becoming the hussy of E3, getting themselves onto every single fucking
Yeah,
stage that will let them on.
yeah. Just you wait, they'll somehow be at Nintendo as
I
well. I
mean,
mean, they
they
will be at
literally
Nintendo as
have a
well. Oh,
Nintendo
Octo. Yeah,
exclusive out in a couple of weeks.
yeah,
Like,
no, they do.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they're everywhere, everywhere. Yeah. So Kingdom Hearts 3 Pirates looked cool. Um, they've also gone for like a realistic style for that, which is kind of interesting because the whole game's kind of cartoonish, and then it's like there it's kind of real.
yeah. I
Um,
I was struck by how good it looks, though. I really didn't expect them to be able to make realistic sort of graphics look that good, especially in that quite cartoony engine.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, the engine's set on Unreal Engine, and something that I think
Oh,
has been
okay.
impressive. Yeah, something that's been quite impressive is from the gameplay I've seen of this. It's just how versatile the Unreal Engine is, like in terms of or just how versatile this game is. Um, like in the sense of both kind of combat, just in general, like the way combat evolves, and I've seen quite a lot of footage of how that works and how you can kind of just flow around really easily. And then, the added, you can summon a train and get on it and fly around in a train. And
Yeah,
the it doesn't sound impressive, I guess, when you say it like this, but it's the fact that it flows as a game really well from what I've seen.
yeah,
Um, and it's not like, this is the train section of the game, this is the or whatever, this is the mech section of the game. Like there's something that Square's been doing in Final Fantasy 15, and something that's very clearly kind of at the heart of this Kingdom Hearts 3 is just kind of going, how much can we pack into this game? Um, and it's something that I think will make it very interesting.
Mm. Then we got to our third deep dive, which was Death Stranding, and we started with a literal birth because Hideo Kojima treats subtlety like Johnny Depp treats his wives. The sorry, that was really dark. Um, the deep
Yeah,
dive was a the deep dive was a really interesting one. This is the one I think we would both agree on that was not really deep in any way. We got a lot of, I guess, pre-rendered cutscene, maybe at this point. We got some gameplay, which was nice, although the gameplay was just the main character, Norman Reedus, walking around in various environments, so it was kind of hard to nail down. Although he was avoiding some bad guys as well for a point, but it's still kind
yeah,
of hard to
that
nail
was later
down
on.
what the
I,
game is.
yeah, I still, yeah, this is the problem, is that he managed to show gameplay while also kind of not answering the question of what the game is. Um, I thought this would do it, but I mean, I've never been more weirdly hyped for a game, and I think like a lot of people feel that way. Um, it's like hard to kind of say why it's exciting.
Yeah,
Um, because like it's, here's like a load of abstract stuff. Um, and like, I feel like it is going to be kind of, it's going to turn into a survival horror in some sense, or a survival game in some sense. There's going to be gunplay, I think. But from what we saw, it might be like a walking simulator with cutscenes. I don't know.
mm.
I feel like it's going to be, a bit like Silent Hill or something like that, where we will end up being alone and having to survive with a pistol. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think the big problem with this game is that it was announced way too early. I mean, it was announced. It seems like it was announced weeks, months after being kind of put together or pitched. I I would like to know how far Kojima has to go in terms of like not showing things before he starts to damage the goodwill he has with people. A lot of the hype has been built up on this being Kojima's first game out of Konami, him not tied down, him having creative control, and I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Kojima on a day-to-day basis anyway, but it seems to me like that might not be the best of things. Sometimes really good creators need good producers to helm them in and go, you have great ideas, let's make them into something actually makeable. And I really worry that what's going on here is Kojima almost overindulging a little bit and Sony kind of allowing him to.
I don't think so, but I don't know. I'm unbiased.
Well, I mean, we both are, but I think that's what I don't know. I think that's what makes us good at this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot to it that we haven't seen, and obviously we've seen a lot, kind of. Um, but I think that there will be when we see the actual thing, when it comes out, because I'm at this stage where I believe that like the game is going to be pretty secretive in terms of what it is. I think it's going to be one of those kind of titles where you don't really see it until it's out. I think. I think like it's, I don't know.
I mean, they know it will sell copies, I suppose. They know it will.
I mean, I'll buy it.
I mean, yeah. But I mean, for a lot of people at this point, Hideo Kojima could take a shit in a shoe and people would buy it. Like I suppose they could be willing to risk that kind of secrecy on. People will buy it regardless. But I kind of hope they don't. I really want to be proved wrong, and I really want Kojima to show gameplay or show a concept or show something that makes me go, oh, okay, I get what this guy's pitching for. But as of yet, like we saw gameplay and we still barely saw gameplay, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
Still no release date on that one, which is to be expected, but not even no window, no anything like that. I would expect this one to be a while out still.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of the hype is driven though by the fact that Kojima got very in with Silent Hills. And it's kind of like we don't really have anything of that, I guess. It's like anyone kind of making these kind of deep concepts or whatever, style games. I don't know. I think like for me, that's kind of the reason I'm excited about it. And I can't really define it very well, admittedly, but it's sort of this.
No. I get what you mean. There aren't many people who are taking a concept that Silent Hills or PT had and making it real. I think the problem that I have, and the problem that I think Kojima is going to have, is that the longer he takes, the more people are catching up. Transference, for example, from Ubisoft's conference this afternoon, that to me had an incredibly PT-esque feel to it, and that to me felt like the kind of game that was starting to tread on Kojima's toes. Beyond Good and Evil this afternoon, if the scale we saw from it last year and the gameplay and finesse we saw of it this year becomes a reality, that looks to me like the kind of thing that has the concept and polish to really bite at the heels of him. And this game could well be Kojima's proving ground of saying, look, I'm not the old guard, I'm still this huge innovator in the game space. But you also have to wonder, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but you also have to wonder how much the kind of acerbic culture of Konami turned what he thinks into something. Because Metal Gear is undeniably impressive. It's undeniably innovative, both at the time of its original release and still to this day. And it's undeniably a wonderful series. But I wonder if it's a wonderful series because I can look at it and go, that's a format of gaming that I know that's doing so many new and interesting things. Whereas Death Stranding to me looks like a format of gaming that nobody knows, and that's a lot harder to get right. If you're the first person that does something, if he is doing something for the first time, not only doing it but proving that it can work is one mountainous hell of a task.
Yeah. I just kind of think I realized something. The
Okay.
the something that kind of connects a few things that we've heard. The the black body. So one of in the actual trailer, this is impossible to explain. He connects the baby fetus to himself, and the radar that we've seen before activates with that, and you see black kind of corpses hanging in the air that are like connected by umbilical cords. Because
Is it possible that Hideo Kojima's just gone a bit baby crazy?
yeah, no, it's possible. Um, they are other players, but dead. Because there's been proof. It's been said that there's some multiplayer connection, not multiplayer exactly, but like a online connection. Let's say I could see that being the case. Something along the lines of that, or maybe you like add to the world.
I could, I could see it being the case. I could see adding to the world definitely in some form. The problem I have is not knowing what those things are or what they do. For example, it could be as interesting as some of the stuff that happens in Dark Souls, where like when people ring the bells, when people ring the bells in Dark Souls, there's a chance that you'll hear them in your game, and that's really interesting and meaningful. Or it could be something as unmeaningful as Assassin's Creed, where you sometimes see that somebody else took a photo in the world, or their body shows up in the world, and you get a little quest for it. And to me, that, like, until we know what the game is, knowing those kind of fine details is a cool concept that's, I don't know, hard to nail down is the whole thing for this game. Anyway, we've given it far too much time.
Not enough time.
Yeah.
We need to do an hour under this.
Any E3 demo that starts with a literal baby's ass is just all over the place. Then we got Neo 2 announced with a CG trailer. Didn't expect this one at all.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. Not exclusive this time, I don't believe.
Oh, cool.
I don't think so. Not entirely sure. I think Neo itself is coming to PC as well, or it's on PC actually at this stage. And I don't think Neo 2 is exclusive. I can't find anything that says it is.
So the CG trailer was a fairly basic CG trailer, not a huge amount to talk about there, as we're already nearly 40 minutes into this. Then another Dreams cutaway, and then Spider-Man takes the stage for our final deep dive in a scripted gameplay demo. I will say the swinging mechanics this time around looked a lot better. They looked a lot more fluid. They looked a lot more refined than previously. They looked kind of like you could actually play the game and make it work like this, which I was very glad to see. The thrust of the demo was basically that a thing happens in a prison with a bunch of Spider-Man's enemies, and the Sinister Six basically gets formed around this mission, with the demo ending in a "and you" tease to tease the sixth member of the Sinister Six, whoever it turns out to be. That was the demo. The combat looks fairly similar as we've seen it looking before. I still have my reservations about this game.
I am I think pretty excited about it at this stage. I think combat looks really good.
It all looks good. This was the best demo we've seen of it by far. This was the one that looked the most new and the most polished. But I don't know, something about it still feels too much like the Spider-Man games that have come before.
Right.
For example, I think if this was the first time we'd seen Spider-Man, and it had been 4 years since the last Spider-Man game, and you put the Beanox label on this, I could kind of believe that after 4 years this is something they could create. And
right.
I would kind of believe that it's still based on that kind of grounding. So I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe the gameplay is so much tighter.
Yeah.
I'm just very wrong.
The swinging looks a lot better.
That I will give you. The swinging looked fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that was Spider-Man. We know
Yeah.
we had the release date for that earlier this year, so we know it's coming out in September. A sizzle reel closed the show as we used to with PlayStation, and there was no other one last thing, which I'm kind of interested in. Although there was the whole From Software PSVR thing that came on afterwards, but that wasn't the From Software one last thing that I think a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this one?
Um. ugh. I don't know. As I say, like I think if they'd not had that kind of 10 minute at the start, quite good to be honest. Like sure, it's not say Xbox is here's 50 things, but it's here's like well, we can argue this, but here's like at least three really good things, plus RE2 Make and Neo.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like that, I really enjoyed the show. Again, without that 10 minute bit. Yeah, I think like they could have done it better in that sense. But at the end of the day, they kind of said they were going to show these four things, and they showed at least three of them. Let's say we can debate.
No, I'd agree. I'd agree that at least three of them, and a lot more than we've seen of the fourth.
Yeah, okay, that's how we should say it.
The thing that strikes me about this conference is it would have been amazing if the first 10 minutes were the last 10 minutes.
Mm.
I'd have been perfectly okay if we got those deep dives and some of those smaller reveals, and then they were like, "Hey, we're gonna just sort of fill time for 5 minutes because we've built The Last of Us." That I would have been totally okay with, but I feel like opening the show with it missed the mark.
Yeah, no, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, so the formatting of that, yeah, it wasn't great the way they'd organised it.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think pretty strong. In my sense, I know you kind of have a different opinion on it.
I thought it was a solid conference. I thought for the most part it did what it said it would.
Yeah.
Obviously, you come into every E3 conference and you want E3 2015 and 16 where everything blows your fucking mind and you never expected these, but they can't all be like that. And this one being a not like that one game, not like that one conference, still looked great. Was surprising at times, not quite as surprising as we'd have liked. And yeah, the games that are coming seems very interesting and very exciting.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a format we'll see them do again, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah. I think like as we get out of this kind of cycle, then yeah, it'll kind of change again. But I didn't mind this. I thought it was quite good when it kind of got going. I think like I put it fairly. I don't know how I'd rank things this year. It's not an easy thing, and obviously Nintendo to come.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the more we see, the more I do actually think that Nintendo have a really good shot at this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, was our reactions to all of the things that happened in a slightly confusing order to the Sony press conference. Thank you very much for joining us. You can find all of our E3 content right here on the page that you are listening to this. There's a playlist called E3 2018, and if you want all the E3 stuff we've ever done, there's every E3 ever, which you can find as well. We're on all the channels, whether that be YouTube, iTunes, Facebook or Twitter at GamesUpcast on all of them, and if you feel like subscribing so you don't miss anything that we put out for E3 or in the future, we'd really like that. Thanks very much. We will see you tomorrow for Nintendo. I'll say thanks very much, Sony, for not going for 3 hours, because that means I get an hour's more sleep. Really appreciate it. See you tomorrow.
I appreciate that too.
See you tomorrow when my eyes aren't baggier than Hideo Kojima's baby thing that happened there. That was
Baby
weird.
butt.
Baby butt.
Yeah.
What a fucking thing to say at 4 o'clock in the morning. The game is just done. It's finished.